Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, still from The Next Reel.
We're looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man. And back with us today, we have Kathy Campbell from The Robot and the Unicorn. Hey, Kathy.
Hello, gentlemen.
Yay! Love it when Kathy's here.
Woo!
Can I just say, KathyCampbell.com, there is a glamour shot of Kathy Campbell wearing her trademark unicorn head in the sunset on the beach that makes me smile like nothing else. Kathy Campbell.
And that is
That
the
is
point.
amazing.
That is the purpose of that, and all of my branding is all unicorn based.
Oh my God.
It's magical. It makes people smile, makes them laugh, and I just, it makes me happy.
It is a wonderful photo.
It just makes me think, where is the rest of the unicorn? Because that's a real... You're wearing real unicorn head, and it's really horrible. But I don't know. We could table that.
Yeah.
That went dark.
I feel like that's
Just
a
went
whole other
gory and dark
podcast.
all of a
Godfather.
Oh my goodness. Well, thanks for that, Pete.
Minute 82.
We are looking at Iron Man Minute 82. On today's show, the minute starts with a bogey being spotted and ends with Iron Man getting hit midair by shots from the F-22.
And if you've ever been hit by an F-22, you know it smarts. I'm just saying.
It's not something you want to be hit by.
Nope.
No.
It's not.
Nope.
I don't really want to be hit by anything, but definitely not an F-22.
No.
Definitely not. This minute starts with we've got all of our folks in the CAOC, as they call it in the film, looking at monitors. And I just have to say, I really love the very first monitors that we're staring at in this minute, with the little tiny out of focus radar shot of Iron Man flying through the air.
Yeah.
It's like some UFO photo. I don't know. I think that's probably what they were going for, and I love it all the more because of the way it looks.
It's very much like, oh, here's this weird thing flying. Let's definitely really hone in on, oh, it's an unidentified bogey. We don't know what it is. We don't know if it's good or bad. Let's just have it all out there as basic as possible.
And then let's shoot it down.
Right? Or
the only call they make is Rhodes calls under his breath his buddy Tony, and that's the lengths and the limits of the investigation that they undertake. No, it's not you, Tony. Okay, then we're going to shoot it down.
Well, and to be fair, they do talk about trying to make contact with it to get identification. Right. And anytime there's something flying in a legit no-fly zone, especially something that's not talking to them, it's probably going to be a bad guy.
Well, he was on the phone.
Probably.
Yeah.
He was busy. He can't. He doesn't have call waiting.
There's no call waiting in the suit. Verizon.
Oh, burn. I have Verizon, and it's true. Right. I'm actually having issues with my voicemail right now.
You had 10 years to figure this out, Verizon.
And it's still failing. Mm-hmm. This episode sponsored by Verizon.
It is kind of a rough minute for Tony. This is, we see these people checking on him. They spot him. And then you got these two F-22s dropping into frame to come and investigate further and then attack. It's a beautiful shot, and this reminds me of the earlier minute when Tony is I think this was 20 minutes ago or so, or 30 minutes, when Tony is in the desert. And he's walking through the dunes, lost and alone. And then all of a sudden, you have these helicopters come over the rise. And because they're not in the frame, you don't hear them, and nor does he. As soon as they come into frame, it's like, boom, it's like helicopter noise, and he hears them. This is pretty much the same thing. You get this great shot of Iron Man flying through the sky. And I have to say also, the effects work here through this whole sequence is so good. Like, he looks authentic, like there's actually this man flying through the sky.
Yeah.
But you don't hear these jets at all until they drop into frame. It's like, oh, okay, yes. Now, there are clearly two F-22s here. And neither does he. And this is something that Jarvis should be warning him. I mean, he's got his radar thing on his HUD, right?
Where was Jarvis? Come on now.
Oh, maybe Jarvis just has a bad connection with the Afghan.
On Verizon. Does Jarvis use Verizon?
I love that shot too, and I just want to just hammer that home. Like when you look at that freeze, it's such a perfect poster frame. The relative size of Iron Man next to those images is the same, right? So he looks just as kind of imposing as the jets behind him. It is just beautifully architected clouds, and we know how hard it is to do smoke. And so the clouds look great. The mountains peeking through them in the back look great. I mean, the plate is perfect. It just is really a wonderful sequence. And then when he does his little move, and he could just turn, but he flippy dippies, spins out of the way. Yeah, which is just awesome as these jets overtake the frame. I love that single shot is really great.
Well, if there's one thing we've learned about Iron Man, he likes to do flippy dippy moves all the time.
A lot.
He is rolling through the skies ever since he first flies. It's like his thing.
I feel like it might be an ease of use, because I mean, it's not like you're driving on a road and you can just turn your wheels. Like I feel like with the momentum and everything, it makes it a little bit easier to just like do your flippy dippy to change direction, because it's easier to maybe like move your muscles that direction than to like, I don't know, try and drag your feet in air. I don't even know how physics works. But
how does that work?
But you have to wonder, what's happening to his brain with all this swinging around inside this helmet? Like, this is, again, I know we haven't discussed the concussions nearly enough, but this is one of those sequences where just the way he's flying around, and as soon as the next, probably I don't know, it's like 10 seconds later or something, he engages supersonic flight, and he does because the HUD says in red, "Engage supersonic flight" on his little palette, and then he disappears, and it's fantastic. But brain again. It's hard to watch that and not think that he's pudding.
Jarvis fixes it somehow.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It's
and also
Jarvis
wearing that giant compression sock on his body, like his whole thing. Yeah. Right.
And remember, we decided earlier in an earlier minute, Pete, that his suit has little devices inside that's giving him a scalp massage as he goes through all
his
this.
Ab electrolysis, true, too. So it actually comes out stronger.
All things that help. All things that help.
I'm ashamed I didn't remember that. Thank you.
I can't believe you didn't. You mentioned as far as the clouds and everything, Pete, a moment ago. What I thought was great is they actually went and they shot just tons of plates of cloud footage and everything. And they kind of plotted out what they were wanting to do. So theoretically, nothing that we're looking at here with all of the skies over, quote, Afghanistan, which is really still out in the Lone Pine, California area by the Alabama hills, it's all real. And then they just dropped in all the CG elements, which I think it really just, it helps quite a bit. It looks really nice.
It does. It's beautiful.
Okay, so let me get a judge's ruling then. If we go forward to second 31, we have this fantastic pass as he goes supersonic, and we see the little puff of smoke behind him, the puff of vapor as he disappears. He flies over our left shoulders, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
What do you think is up with their choice to leave like moisture debris on the lens? Like, that's something they totally could have cleaned up, and it's not something we see often when in this movie, where there's like it almost breaks the sort of visual fourth wall, right?
Yeah, they do some interesting things like that periodically in this film, where it feels like, and we'll actually talk about this in some coming minutes, where they have some strange shots that actually feel very GoPro-ish. In fact, we have another one that feels like it's almost attached to his leg or something around second 41 when we watch the flares pop out, right?
Yes.
It's an interesting choice that they do to kind of give you that sense that, oh no, there's really a camera there.
Yeah, I think that's probably why they did it, because like you said, they did a lot of the filming, all sorts of clouds and movement, and like, let's get this real stuff in. Well, let's just keep it real. Let's make you feel like you are watching Iron Man fly right by, even though obviously Iron Man's not actually flying there. I don't know if you know this, but the Iron Man character, as he,
Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry to break
Yeah.
this to you, but it as a viewer and as someone that maybe isn't an extensive like knowledge worker in the visual effects field, your default brain will just be like, oh yeah, that's exactly how it should be. Not, oh, they chose to leave that in there, or they added it, because every so often you'll have, sun flares in fully digital animation, or things that that were digitally animated, or visual effects added to it to have that realistic element to say, oh, hey, maybe they did, I don't know, throw Robert Downey Jr. in a suit and drag him behind a helicopter to pretend like he's flying or something like that.
That'd be great.
I totally agree, but in this case, and I'll go back to Andy's comparison shot, right? The camera on the leg, is a clean plate, like it's a clean shot. They've removed any sort of dust and debris from the screen. I would expect some sort of debris on that shot more than the shot of him flying by. And this is why, because there is nothing in the sky as he's flying on our shoulder upon which that shot could be mounted, right? He's not flying past a jet. He's not flying past a helicarrier somewhere. It's the omniscient cameraman, right? And those plates are clean. Those shots tend to always be clean. This one has like moisture dots on it, which I find really interesting that they made that a conscious choice to leave that there. So it sticks out to me every time, because leaving that dirty shot is rare when they make that choice.
It is. I completely agree with you, because it isn't something that would make sense, like it's attached to something.
It's not like a wing camera. Yeah.
No, yeah. But I still love it. And I don't know why. It's just it's one of those shots that it's like it shouldn't be there, but it does give me that sense of authenticity weirdly.
Yeah.
So I end up totally buying into it and enjoying it.
It is. It's a great shot. It's a huge power hero shot, right? As soon as he hits that supersonic, it is exhilarating. So don't make the mistake of watching it frame by frame, is all I'm saying. just let it ride, everybody. Let it ride.
Now, I want to jump back real quick to the to that shot of the jets dropping into or coming into frame to engage Tony. It's very strange, but I revisited the trailer just before watching this minute, and weirdly, in the trailer, instead of dropping down into the frame, the two jets come up from the bottom of frame in the trailer. It was an odd choice to like change that. I'm like, I wonder why they chose to do that, because I don't know. Like, I keep looking at it and I'm like, do I care that they come from the top versus the bottom?
Do you have a different emotional response as you watch those side by side? Like, or
I don't
one
feel like
other?
I do, and that's the thing I don't really get. Like, why is that a change that they made? I don't know.
I wonder if it's because coming up from the bottom, there's a sort of Jaws feel to it, like there's sort of an ominous, the world has depth to it, and dropping from the bottom is kind of more of a surprise. Like, one is stalking, one is surprising. I don't know. I'm totally vamping here because that's a very strange choice.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And obviously they hadn't color timed it yet either.
They also have them very much closer. So
yeah.
The side, okay. So here's my thoughts. My very professional, this is why you invited me here, because I have thoughts. So the planes are a lot larger, and Tony is so tiny compared to the final thing where Tony is so much bigger than the planes. And so by having it come down and have them be smaller, it's much more, hey, just dropping in to check up on you. You shouldn't be here. Engage and talk to me. Versus the much larger planes coming up from the bottom. It's so much more ominous and overwhelming. And it's entirely possible that they did that. They chose that for the trailer versus the real thing, as opposed to, oh, I don't like this, we should change it. I could see them doing both ways and saying, oh, let's use this one for the trailer. You know, it's very ominous, very end of the world, because that's what we're going to showcase for the trailer and get people come in and want to see this. But for the movie, have it be a little bit more, because they haven't quite gotten to the we're going to shoot you down yet.
Right.
They're like, hey, we're still trying to engage with you and communicate. So I could see it being a very distinct choice.
Coming up from the bottom is like Jaws coming out of the water.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess there is that element that's like a little more daunting.
The other thing that's interesting about this is that, coming up from the bottom implies that they just took off, right? That this is the first time we're going to see these jets. So it's curious to me why coming down out of the sky is the way to introduce them in this sequence, when it actually makes more logistical sense to have them fly up to Tony.
Yeah. Right, as if they were just sent out.
Yeah.
Like, go check out what this is.
Instead, they swoop down like they've been engaged before.
Or I wonder if they were running loops around the no-fly zone like they do, perimeter checks. That's how that works, right? With the planes?
I'm sure that's what they say. I'm surprised Rhodey didn't even say that. We're on perimeter checks. Yeah, I think that was in the script.
Yep.
I'm sure it must have been.
They cut it for time.
Yeah, it was cut for time. Okay, well, I'm glad we got that figured out.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah.
So these F22 Raptors, they were relatively newish at the time. They can fly up to 1,500 miles per hour, so they can definitely catch up with him at the speeds that he's flying right now. They cost a measly $412 million to build each one.
Oh, no wonder they have two.
Right. And actually, they were very expensive, and only 187 of them were made because of the high cost and because the F-35 was being developed. And most of these were developed between 2005 and 2012. Obama had ended the program in 2009, and they just kind of finished making the ones they were making, and that was the end of the F-22s.
Oh.
But they live on in our memory in Iron Man.
They live on in Iron Man, exactly.
I wonder if these are name branded.
I don't see it. Like, who made these? McDonald's, Douglas?
They're Lockheed Martin.
Lockheed
Martin makes these. And these are, as we find out, they're Whiplash 1 and Whiplash 2. And that is, of course, a nod to Whiplash, one of Iron Man's villains from his Rogues Gallery, and somebody that we will see in Iron Man 2. I don't think that they knew that at the time, but I think they, at least I don't know. But what's weird is that they actually are credited as Viper 1 and Viper 2. And I think they must have come in to redub all the lines later and decided, you know what, let's do Whiplash as a fun little nod.
Yeah.
I wonder if they had been cleared for Iron Man 2 and so changed it to have that tie-in. But when they first wrote, the first one, who knew what was going to happen? Like, they didn't know if they were going to get any future films.
Well, at this point in the movie, we're actually not sure that they knew how this film was going to end.
Well, that's true, too.
Our two pilots playing our Viper 1 and Viper 2, or Whiplash 1 and Whiplash 2, however we want to call them, are Tim Rigby and Russell Richardson. We do a little thing over here, Kathy, the IMDb game, where it's you try to guess. I don't know if you're familiar with IMDb, but
very familiar.
When you look,
are you familiar with IMDb?
When you look at anybody, it lists 4 movies that it suggests that they're known for, and not necessarily the most famous or the most money-making or anything like that. It's a strange algorithm. We have these two actors here, Tim Rigby and Russell Richardson, and I know we probably don't know who they are, but I thought it would be fun to look at their IMDb top 4 anyway, just to see. Tim Rigby, actually, he plays Whiplash 1. He's primarily a stunts person.
Yep.
He's done a lot of work in stunts. In fact, Captain Marvel, which as of the recording has not opened yet.
Oh, excited.
I know, it's going to be a good one. He actually did stunts in that. And his top 4 on IMDb are Iron Man, Wonder Woman, 300, and Triple X. And all for the stunts work that he did in them.
Triple X.
In fact, he's only credited as an actor in 5 films, this being one of them. And it's the only Marvel film that he was actually credited as an actor in. And sadly, and I'm assuming this is because the change from Viper 1 to Whiplash 1, he did not end up getting to do his voice in this. They actually brought in David Zeiler to actually do the voice of Whiplash 1. Or maybe they just didn't like his voice. I don't.
Or they didn't want to pay
speculate.
him to do stunts and the voice work.
Right.
Exactly. So David Zeiler came in to do the voice. What's interesting about David Zeiler is that he is very much an ADR guy. He comes in and does the loops on tons of films. He's done 28 films so far where he's come in to do the different voices, starting in 95, TV as well. And this is one of them, but he's done a lot more. And it's all just kind of the ADR stuff. That's his thing. His films that he's known for on IMDb are The Meg.
There you go. That's the stuff.
X-Men Days of Future Past, Deadpool, and Fantastic Four, the 2015 version.
Huh.
Really? That may be the biggest surprise of this minute.
Real quick, but before we move on to the second actor that I can't remember his name, but that's fine. I found it very interesting that he is actually the aerial stunt coordinator for Iron Man. So he plays one of the pilots, but is also in charge of all of the aerial stunts, which is probably also why they didn't have him talk.
That would make sense.
Because wait, now I'm slow. Why is that a connection?
Well, just because he's there as the aerial stunt coordinator. And so he's doing all of these stunts anyways. And so instead of having him record lines while he's doing the stunts or anything like that, they knew that they would have to do the vocalizations afterwards.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, know what? We're not even going to bother with having you here. You're here because these are difficult stunts or like really, really hard. So we might as well just have you in it because we can just record the words later.
Right. Interesting.
It does make me wonder, like, what we see are aerial stunts versus just CG. I wonder about that, particularly as we come into some of our later minutes, which we'll talk about. Yes, Whiplash 2, that's Russell Richardson. It's funny because these guys, you just never get to see their faces. They're always covered up by all their masks. But his top 4 for IMDb are Iron Man. So this is one of his top 4. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Tigerland, and The Rookie.
Oh, yeah, The Rookie.
Yeah, I liked The Rookie. That was a good movie, yeah.
Call of Duty Advanced Warfare.
Wow.
Is that the first time a video game has made it into one of our conversations of IMDb, the IMDb game? I think it is.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He was great in that game.
He's in the new Spider-Man game that everybody's loving.
Yeah.
So those are our pilots that we get here, and it's I like these guys. I think it's fun, and I think they work quite well as the pilots in this scene. It's a lot of fun.
It is a great sequence. I do have an interesting thing about Jarvis, though, because we were talking about Jarvis. He does.
Yes.
We don't. I think this is the first time he uses a voice control to initiate a command, right?
Yeah.
Where he actually says flares.
Yes.
Obviously, I don't know for the whole movie, but yes, in this sequence, 5 minutes,
in these 2 minutes, right? And he doesn't say, "Hey, Jarvis." Hey, Jarvis, flares. He just says flares. And I find it interesting from now on to think about where he is able to use his visual interface and where he chooses to use the flare, like the voice interface. And why is it that Rhodey doesn't hear him yelling flares into the phone?
Right.
It's the little things.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Well, maybe because he used his fingertip twitches to put the phone on mute.
Right.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
he was on hold.
Or he looked
I'm sure that's what it was.
ominously in that one corner of the phone coordination to mute it.
Right.
Accidentally went into supersonic for a minute and then put the phone on hold.
I would imagine it's hard to stay connected on a phone line when you're going supersonic.
Yeah.
I mean, how does the sound catch up to you when you're flying faster than the speed of it?
That's a very good question.
I just don't know how that works.
We need a science advisor. This is trouble.
It's just not working. The missile that they shoot at Tony is a Sidewinder missile. Those can fly at about Mach 2.5 or more, which I guess in my head, I just don't, I never understand how fast these things are flying, but I don't know, it seemed really fast, but I guess it makes sense because they have to get places very quickly. So of course they fly fast.
You can't, you have to be able to have something that goes fast enough that somebody can't just turn left at the last minute and miss it.
It's actually part of the sales pitch. Now, is this thing fast enough to catch up to things that are also fast?
Except it doesn't work so well when it's a tank shooting a shell at Iron Man.
Right.
Because not only can he move, he can just take a casual step to the side to avoid the shell, but we can see it go by.
Right.
Those guys need to get these Sidewinder missiles installed in their tanks. That would work a lot better.
Yeah, that seems safe.
Totally safe.
That seems really safe. Really safe. I do like that the flares, we had seen this thing on his hip before, but it was a manual hand crank that he used when he was icing up.
Right.
It's interesting that now it's where also we find out that his flares are. And it's kind of a cool little thing to see.
Yeah. It's extra fancy. All these super secret pockets in the suit.
It's like his suit is Batman's belt. His utility belt, but it's in his entire suit.
Yeah, like every joint.
It's very Inspector Gadget.
Totally. Which, we've talked about this before. Like, one of the things that's so great about Iron Man is just how grounded it is in the physicality of the suit and how patient they were in introducing us to the suit and grinding and milling the parts. It makes all of this, the reveal of the Inspector Gadgety stuff, easier to swallow. And because, of course, that's where the flares would be. Now I'll never see that in any other way.
Yeah.
Because they sold me on what this thing was. And so I think all of these are just really wonderful reveals. All of the prizes.
They are all prizes.
Yep.
They really are. The F22 pops up the M61, and that's what they shoot at him with. And according to the pilot's own, I like how we get to see kind of their own version of the HUD. It's a nice little touch that we see the pilot's view with the targeting and everything. I mean, it's not like something we've never seen before, but I like that in this film where we're staring through Iron Man's HUD so often, here we actually get to see them working with their own. And we see that he's got quite a few rounds as we look at his HUD. It looks like he's got, what does it say, 580 rounds. So he's got a lot of shots that he can take at old Iron Man.
Firing so fast. I have to ask though, why do you think that Tony, who has made this magical HUD for his suit, who also designs the airplanes, has this sort of rudimentary HUD with just like lines, and it's essentially the interface to Tank Commander? While Tony, who builds the airplanes, doesn't give them all the fancy stuff that he has. Like, he doesn't have, like, you don't see the pilot bringing up PDFs of anything, right? Tony can do that, right? You don't see the pilot looking at anything with his eye gestures. Tony can do that. That seems a little bit unfair.
Because it is military issue, so they're always a couple years behind, even on these super fancy things.
So you got to make them earn it.
Yes.
That's what Tony's doing, is making them earn the next upgrade.
They couldn't afford the upgrade.
It's all the cost, right? It comes down to cost. What's the military going to pay?
He'll throw in the chest of booze.
Of course he will.
With every purchase of missiles. But
well, that was probably given to him for free anyways. Like,
it's a sponsored deal.
Boo, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I had one script note, actually. This was interesting. From when he gets hit by the near missile hit, it actually, in the script, it says he pulls heavy G's to get away from it, and then it shows the HUD. Tony nearly blacks out as the G-force meter hits red, and then Jarvis kicks in. Sir, may I remind you that the suit can handle these maneuvers. You cannot.
Ooh.
And it was an interesting little thing to add in there that I guess we don't need it, but I like the idea that there is still a man inside the suit. It's something that they've really, for the most part, I think, dropped a lot from the film, the finished film. The fact that when Tony's in the suit, the way that the film is, it makes him seem like, he's impervious.
He's invincible.
Yeah. It's the suit that takes the brunt force of anything that's happening to it.
See, that's, I think, what we were getting to earlier and yesterday. It's this idea of, what's going on with his brain. Contrary to that, Andy, I think I did need that. Like, I think that would have been a valuable line to throw into the movie, because for me, so much of the power of Iron Man is that it is the junction of man and machine, and I really appreciate knowing where the frailty lies in that combination. And that makes the character more interesting to me, not less. And I recognize that's a philosophical distinction. And Favreau made a choice that this was going to be, when he's in the suit, the rules change. And I think I would have been I would have been keen to hear otherwise.
Yeah, really ground it in the humanity and the Tony Stark, even though he has not quite magical, but he's got this superhuman heart thing going on. He's still human. He wasn't hit by gamma rays. He wasn't, dropped in a pool of acid or anything like that. He is human. And really cementing that, I think, would have been a good thing to do, but that's fine.
Well, it will definitely be something that's interesting for us to continue looking at as the film continues, and then as the franchise continues, just to see how that shifts over time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, thanks again for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always a delight to talk to you, gentlemen.
Likewise.
Aww.
Do you want to remind everybody where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me. My username most places is Mrs. Soup, and you can find links to everything that I do at kathycampbell.com.
That's fantastic. Well, that is it for today's show, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers.